what isn't, and tell you the reasons why, will have value. A second will be the crowd. It won't be the entire crowd, but the crowd of interested consumers. And the true evangelists of digital media have a lot of faith in the power of the crowd to correct misinformation, to come in and actually set the record straight. But the third, I think, is ultimately going to be the users themselves, not just the people who bother commenting, but actually, I know the profession doesn't like the word consumers, so I'll say the users themselves. I'm actually involved with a movement in the US called News Literacy, which is attempting to teach consumers of news, give them the tools they need to actually verify information, to understand what is actually believable, the difference between news, rumor, gossip, propaganda, advertising, and so on. So I think it'll be some kind of complicated mix of those three forces: professionals, an interested group of commenters, and then ultimately the mass consumers themselves.
Now, I'd second that, but I think the world we're moving into very quickly, as you both described it the last couple of comments, isn't getting knitted together, but is in fact absolute chaos. And that chaos is being manipulated, as you pointed out very well, by those in authority, as people in authority always do. So we have journalists that need to check on the manipulation of social networks. We have the social networks that need to check on the manipulation of journalists, or quasi-journalists, or bots, of government, and government, of course, has more and more power because of what is going on here. And in a sense, this is kind of, using an old American movie, a Blade Runner future, where everybody is checking on everybody. The trust in institutions across the developed world is at its lowest ebb. And that is a problem for all of us. It's good. In my generation in the 60s started challenging authority, but where we're now at is just trust quotients are so low, nobody knows who to trust, and the ability for manipulation by power of any kinds is even greater today than it has ever been.
Skepticism is good, cynicism is bad.
Yeah.
Let me add one thing to that. Without disagreeing, but I remind you the interesting sentence of the U.S. federal courts a few years ago, and one of the many attempts in the United States to control the internet that ultimately collapsed, but that one by Clinton twice. And the sentence of the federal court that preserved the freedom in the internet said, well, internet, yes, is chaos, but citizens have a constitutional right to chaos. And I think the notion of a constitutional right to chaos is an interesting one, which ultimately doesn't mean, what it means basically is freedom first, and from there we reconstruct. So the problem with the lack of trust in the institutions is not for citizens, it's for the institution. So if the institutions continue to behave as they do, citizens will stay in a state of free chaos rather than a constrained fake order.
I'm not sure.
Oh, you don't like